us on the programme. We now move over to the Middle East for our next story, where an explosion rocked southern Gaza on Sunday as video from Khan Yunis showed smoke rising into the sky. No details of any casualties have been released so far. The blast comes as Israel announced daily tactical pauses in military operations across 3 areas: Al-Mawasi, Deir al-Balah and Gaza City. From 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time, Israeli forces say they will suspend operations to facilitate humanitarian access. Additionally, secure routes for UN and humanitarian aid convoys have been designated from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. local time. Israel says no ground troops will operate in these zones. Meanwhile, UN aid chief Tom Fletcher says the United Nations will seize the opportunity created by Israel's announced pauses in fighting to reach those in urgent need across Gaza, with blasts still being reported in those parts of Gaza. Civilians remain skeptical. We are covering Israel's announced pause in Gaza. We're now joined by Madhav Nalapat, the editor of the Sunday Guardian. He joins us live from New Delhi. Professor Nalapat, there is no doubt that the humanitarian situation in Gaza is in a terrible, terrible state. However, these 10-hour pauses bring hope. However, some people are skeptical. Do you think that those people have the right to be so?
Look, I'd like to point out that when you play with dynamite, it sometimes has an unpleasant habit of exploding in your face. And unfortunately, the ruling power in Gaza, which is Hamas, has been playing with dynamite for a very long time. And now, I mean, I think my hypothesis would be that that there are now factions now that see the risk that continuing Hamas and government has for the terribly suffering population of Gaza. They are going through utter agony. They are going through the worst form of hell. And this is as a consequence of being ruled by a ruthless terror force, Hamas. So I think, in my view, this is a fight back against Hamas by the people of Gaza, by those people of Gaza who are not indoctrinated into Hamas's ideology of hatred and violence. And I think this is what is happening. And yes, I'm sorry, but they have a right to be skeptical. I don't think the situation is going to end anytime soon. And in the meantime, more and more innocent civilians, including women and children, are going to die. And this is so tragic. You're seeing images every day of what's happening in Gaza: starvation, death and malnutrition, and so many terrible things. But the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, the Israeli government believes, I think quite correctly, that the attack on October 7, 2 years ago, was an existential attack, and therefore they're responding. I don't think they will stop responding until they can end this menace once and for all. Thank you.
Professor Nalapat, do you think that this pause to allow aid into the Gaza Strip comes out of genuine concern from Israel, or do you think it's due to the mounting pressure from Western governments and aid agencies about warning of this mass starvation in the region?
Look, I know the Jewish people, and they are people who have helped humanity in very many crises, and they are extraordinarily kind and generous people. So I'm not sure not everybody there would be in that same situation, but the overwhelming majority of Jewish people are kind-hearted, and they do want the good things to happen to the rest of humanity. The problem is that Hamas, declared war on the state of Israel by that terror attack of October 7. And as a consequence, the government in Israel is now at war. And unfortunately, in war, I'm very sorry to say, no rules apply. The rules of war are no rules except one side or the other claiming victory, and
Well,
that is it.
apart from international law, of course, Professor Nalaput, which forbids the striking of hospitals and aid workers, all of which have been reported in Israel's war in Gaza. Another thing, we have also seen the fact that they're going to drop aid from these planes into Gaza. They're going to allow the United Nations to do this as well, and also there's people, the British government also has said that they're going to do the same. What are your thoughts about this new strategy that has now been approved by the Israeli government?
Well, I'd like to say that innocent people should not starve. They should not suffer. The only point is that that aid should not be flowing into the hands of Hamas. You've got to have a reliable organization on the ground that ensures that the aid flows to people really in need. I mean, Gaza has been given so much of aid over the last 10, 15 years, and much of that has gone into the hands of operators of Hamas. So I think that precaution needs to be taken, but given that, I think it's very important to ensure that enough aid goes to Gaza so that this terrible starvation and deprivation that we are seeing in that little territory, that strip of land, that strip of land which is now a hell on earth. I think it's time that that is addressed, and I think it needs to be safely addressed. And frankly, the problem is Hamas. And I think the Hamas now understand they made a mistake by that attack, but it's too late now. They are at war. And as I said, in war, there is only one possible rule. And the rule is either you win or you lose. And I don't think the Netanyahu is interested in losing, in Israel losing. The Jewish people have suffered horribly, if you remember, in the previous century, and they're determined not to suffer again. And frankly, this attack resembled nothing so much as the horrible scenes of the Holocaust of the 20th century. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Professor Nalaput. You are staying with us to discuss more updates. Iran has executed